from our panelists. Then each panelist will share their perspectives and insights on the topic of cultivating a mutually beneficial mentoring relationship. So the panelists will also respond to questions from the audience. So we'll go ahead and start off with Daniel. Daniel, can you go ahead and introduce yourself? Uh-oh, where'd he go?
Sorry. Anyway, hi, Daniel.
Oh, you're on mute, Daniel.
I'll start again. Hey, my name's Daniel. I've been a structural for now 2 years. I joined the mentoring program as a mentee, and I just started being a mentor. Yeah, and I'm here to bring that perspective. Thanks everyone for joining.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Daniel. And now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Salvador. Salvador, can you introduce yourself next?
Hi, everyone. Glad to see you all here. So many people joining. My name is Salvador Ventolila. I currently work at ACOM, and I am a civil engineer specialized in the water and wastewater. I've joined the ASC mentorship program about 2 years ago. So far, it's been super rewarding. So I'm looking forward to chatting more with you all and thanks afterwards.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us. I know you, I said earlier, one of our all-stars in our ASC mentoring program. So great to have you here to share your insights. And then Bob, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you next. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay. Thanks, Tirza. I'm Bob Cagle. I have been a mentee and a mentor. I am a society director from Region 4. And over the course of, I'm retired now from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, where I was in construction management, area engineer, deputy chief of construction, those kind of things, and have been involved with, as I said earlier, mentoring and being a mentee, both inside and outside of ASCE. I think a lot of the program, I wouldn't be where I was without some very good mentors. And so this is a good opportunity for having some sharing time, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Bob, for joining us. And Jennifer, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you next.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Sloan Ziegler. I am a Region 5 governor from Mississippi, and I am a mentor through the ASE program. But like Bob, I have been a mentor and a mentee outside of ASCE as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining us. I know you all are great mentors within the ASC mentoring program, and we appreciate all the work you do giving back to the society and to civil engineering just in general. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and start off with the kickoff question, but a quick reminder that we do have a chat box, and please go ahead and utilize that if you have any questions. This is a great panel that have lots of insights to share, so please definitely take advantage, ask lots of questions. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and turn to the kickoff question. Thinking back on your past mentoring relationships, can you share one activity that was pivotal to your success? Examples would be mock interviews or introducing mentee to your network. So Daniel, I'll go ahead and start off with you. What activities have you done that have really been successful?
Sure. So I think the most successful thing for me has been writing everything down, and that goes before and after mentoring a phone call. So to build up to, I speak every month to my mentor, and over the course of the month, I write down all my questions, concerns, or anything I'm just curious about. And then once we have the phone call, I jot down what he says in my notebook. And then I have notes to reflect on. And then every month it goes like that. And then I'll email him, here's what we discussed, kind of just a few notes. But yeah, definitely note taking in general.
Yeah, that's great advice. Salvador, I'll go ahead and turn to you next. What activities have you found helpful? Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. So to me, it's really been having a constant communication with my mentee, and this would be having regular calls, but also be available via email or even text messages in between those regular scheduled calls. And I also try to do simulations. So you gave the example of mock interviews, and I think that's a really good one. I had a mentee recently that was looking for a job, and we practiced some questions that could come up in the interview. I also send him resources, and then suggested to practice as much as possible, either with someone else or by himself. So constant communication and then simulating the situations as much as possible would be my advice here.
No, that's absolutely great advice. Bob, what would you recommend?
Well, I think there's a couple of things, and having organized, confirmed times to get together, openness between the parties of sharing questions and answers. But one that's if the opportunity presents itself, that I have found very important, both as a mentee and as a mentor, is shadowing. Being able to go around and be involved and maybe sit in meetings and go on projects with your mentor, to shadow what they're doing and actually see. That has been the biggest help for me over my career, is watching somebody deal with situations that I know I'm going to have to be watching and having to be dealing with. So shadowing, I think, is an important part of any growth process.
No, that's a great point. Have you done any of that since COVID in this new virtual landscape that we've had?
Indirectly with virtual meetings and participating in things with, and I see one of our participants is our chairman of our Younger Member Advisory Council in Region 4. And I think, I don't know whether she thinks of me as a mentor, but I think of her as a mentee. And we've been involved virtually in questions and answers and talks and texting about one thing and another. And so it can be done. It's different, but it can definitely be done.
Yeah, absolutely. You just have to be a little bit more creative and strategic, right?
Right.
So Jennifer, I'll turn to you next. What activities have you found to be pivotal in your success in a mentoring relationship?
I think for me, it is having clearly defined goals and expectations. So each mentor-mentee relationship is very different, and some of them are just general mentor-mentee, but then some of them also have a very specific goal in mind, to try to find a job or to have contacts in a new area. And so I think that having the clearly defined expectations from the beginning of the relationship really helps to define what activities you need to do in that particular relationship and create a beneficial relationship and agreement.
Yeah, it really depends on the goals, right? The goals of the relationship as far as what activities you do. So there's some great questions in the chat. The first one, what resources can you suggest to help identify good discussion topics for you and your mentee? So I shared a resource, but curious if you have other resources to share. Bob, do you have any thoughts about good resources?
I do. The one of the ones that I have used are some of the programs, and Susan can correct me on the name, but it was the modules that the Committee on Developing Leaders put together on communication and leadership and dealing with change and innovation. And we consolidated some of those into slide programs, but looking at those things and using them as discussion topics of things to do is, there's a wealth of things out there with ASCE that you can pick up on and use as a basis for sharing. That's one that comes to my mind, is a couple of presentations that I gave to the multi-region leaders conferences. And there again, those are, once we get back face to face and even virtually, that's another opportunity for younger members and student members and regular members to build relationships and meet people that can serve as role models and mentors.
Just to jump in there, what I find helpful for me is just be yourself. I just, anything, like I said, anything that comes to mind is generally on the table if it's engineering related. So your mentee is there to help you, and your mentor is there to help you, regardless of what the topic is. So as long as you're speaking, I guess from the heart, if you want to say that, then it should be fine.
Honesty. Honesty is always the best policy. And for both on both sides of the equation, the mentee and the mentor, be honest and as specific as you can be on what you're looking for and what your abilities are, and where you want some help. Because none of us got where we are without the help of some others.
Absolutely. That's so important to think about, the trickle down effect, if you will. Awesome. So I'll go ahead and turn to our next question. So what are some items that are important? And this actually kind of feeds into that, right? So what are some items that are important to discuss with your mentor or mentee that are often overlooked? Salvador, do you have any thoughts about topics that might be overlooked?
Mute.
Yeah, keep forgetting that. I think in terms of specific items, I'm gonna change my answer a little bit to say what's important not to overlook and make sure you address, and that to me is make sure that you're aligned in terms of the goals, or at least from the mentor side, to make sure what the mentee's goals are, so you can give the best advice possible. What the time frame is, when the goal wants to be accomplished. If you are actually the best person to help the mentee achieve that goal, maybe you're not, and there can be some, it can be connected to someone else. What the method of communication is going to be used is going to be email, video calls, or text messages. How frequent you want to do it, because people, of course, each one has their own schedule, so that's important to have as well. And also, something that I've enjoyed in the relationships is to just the fact that you are a mentee or a mentor. Try to not hold yourself too much to that title. As a mentor, in my case, for example, I'm usually super open, and also always asking things to my mentees, because I think that it's really a two-way relationship in which you can learn from your party as well. And so I think that strengthens your bond, and those are just some things that I think should be kept in mind during the relationships.
Absolutely. I've heard more and more of that as people talking about more mentoring partnerships instead of, kind of a one-way relationship. Mm-hmm. Jennifer, do you have any thoughts about, what are some of the topics that maybe sometimes get overlooked that are important to discuss?
So I don't have a topic per se, but I think that it's really important that you be able to have the difficult and the hard conversations with your mentor or your mentee, and that you're open to hearing things that you may not want to hear from either side of the equation. The whole point of the relationship, in my opinion, is to grow, and you can't really grow if you're not open to having difficult conversations or talking about difficult topics. So that's not a particular item to discuss. It's just something that happens to come up during the relationship, and you need to make sure that you're able to face it head on and you're not running away from those conversations.
So something that, from the mentee point of view.
We've got some feedback after you took your earbud out, or earbud.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So sorry. Yeah, from the mentee, to go off of that, from the mentee perspective, at the beginning, it's going to be a little awkward. And I know from me, my experience, I had to look online for topics to discuss with the mentor, and then just go through them and see which ones are applicable to you. And over time, after 2-3 months, I didn't really need to search for a topic. It just was oh, this is what I was in my mind this month. So at first it might be a little artificial, but eventually as the relationship grows, you both build that connection. You kind of like, oh, this is what I thought, or you'll send an email, read this article, let me know what you think, and then you discuss it during your monthly or whenever you meet.
It's kind of like dating. And it's been a long time, believe me. I've been married for 41 years, so it's been a long, long time since I did any dating. But it's kind of like dating. It's awkward. You're kind of dancing around until you get comfortable with each other. And I think it goes back to the honesty and being sincere about opening up and talking about things like Jennifer said. You've got to be willing to go there, and that I think that's important for a successful. You got to grow, and it's not so much. Don't expect me as a mentor to tell you what to do, but I can share what I have done, and you can pick the best and throw away from the worst, because we all pick up on things that we want to do, and things that we don't want to do. So, we can have folks that are not real good managers that we pick up on things of, well, I'm not going to do that. And that's so they become mentors in themselves of things I don't want to do, and then pick up on the things that I do want to learn to do and get better at. So.
Yeah, there's all different types of mentors, right?
Absolutely. And I can think now of two of the best ones I ever had way back early in my career. One was a construction inspector who had a high school education, but I learned from him how to deal with contractors, how to understand contractors, because that's what I was in and I needed to be successful. And the other one was an older woman who was what we called in the Corps a procurement assistant, and she taught me how to write modifications, how to write change orders. And I distinctly remember there's nothing magic about it. You just pick up the words you've got laying around the kitchen and you put them in the right order. And that's how you write a clear modification to a $1 million contract. So we learn things from everybody if we're open to it.
Yep, that's a great advice. Got to look at life like a learning opportunity.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So there is a great comment in the chat about my mentor and I are doing a book study. He recommended The Secret, What Great Leaders Know and Do by Blanchard and Miller, and it gives me homework in between meetings. So that's a great resource. I know we had a question about resource earlier, so if anyone's interested in finding that book, they're more than welcome to. So here's another great question in the chat box from another great mentor I know that participates in the ASC mentoring program. So if you are in mentoring relationship that is not working, what tips do you have for terminating the agreement? And if you are the mentor in the relationship, what tips do you have for guiding your mentee towards a new mentor that may be a better fit for them? I'm looking at everyone's faces to see who wants to tackle this one. Jennifer, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I do. I think that's where that whole have difficult conversations part comes in to play sometimes. I think that it's just an honest heart-to-heart conversation. You need to sit down by yourself and fully understand why you think the relationship is not working. See if there are any actions that can be taken to better the relationship or try to make it work. And if it's just not going to work, then it's just not going to work. Like Bob said, it's kind of like dating, and you don't marry the first person that you date most of the time. So, it's not always the right fit, and just be respectful. They've taken time out of their schedule. You've taken time out of your schedule, and be thankful for the opportunity that has been provided. And just be honest about why it's not working. If you are a mentor in that relationship and you're trying to guide your mentee towards somebody that might be a better fit for them. That's really where your network comes into play, and understanding what the mentee needs, and then trying to use your network to find somebody that would be a fit for them.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Does anyone have anything to add?
Sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah. Okay, I would just add to Jennifer's point on using your network. If you're in the position that no one in your network you feel could be a good fit for this mentee, I think posting something on the ASCE website could be helpful. Or also, Tirsa, we've been in touch via emails several times. So in that situation, I think I would, just send you an email with telling about the situation, and I'm sure, maybe that'll help to find someone who's appropriate.
Yeah, so it really boils down to what your situation is. And I think what everyone said already is good. So I don't need to add anything else. Sorry.
No, but I like your comment in the chat, Daniel. Sometimes that means that you have both grown and perhaps your goals have changed. So again, like Bob was saying, that he had a mentor that helped him with certain specific tasks, right? And after you learn those, or you're competent in those things, maybe it's time to find somebody else that can help you tackle a new goal that you have and help you improve in other ways. So, always growing and evolving, like Jennifer was saying. So, and if anyone does, participants within the ASC mentoring program, feel free to reach out to me if you're a mentor and you have a mentee that maybe, you don't connect, and you have someone in mind, a type of person in mind that might be a good fit. I can definitely use the ASCE network, if you will, to try to connect them with someone that's more appropriate. So,
Anwar just posted a comment, and a mentor is generally an older, experienced person. One should recognize the younger brains work on a different frequency, and a mentor has to be very flexible. And I think that's right on point. And I know it has been for me, because I'm a baby boomer, and and having, as I grew in the organization and working with the next generations and the millennials and what have you, of trying to be understanding of where they are and how they see things, and has helped me grow as a manager. And then I think it helped then in turn me become a better role model or mentor for the folks that I was leading and managing as we went along. And I like to use the term leading. You lead people, you manage resources, and so that's another thing to kind of keep in mind as you grow through here. You're trying to lead these people into improvements and those kind of things. So.
Absolutely. I like that one. I'm going to have to write that one down and use it, versus the leading versus managing. I love that. So here's another great question. Can you touch on the topic of how, as a mentor, you have learned from your mentee? So that's a great topic that definitely segues into that. Daniel's laughing. Bob, did you have your hand up?
I can. Daniel can go first.
My answer is really quick. I asked my mentor this. I said, "Why are you doing this?" And his answer was, "It helps me understand like my employees, people I'm managing. So it kind of puts me in touch with people who are incoming and things I might have forgotten, like how nervous you get when you start your first job, or just these random things that you don't think about that since you're in such a senior level." So that's all I have. Otherwise, I'm just a mentee.
Yeah, it's you learn from everybody, and I've learned things to improve myself from any mentee, formal or informal, that I've had. But how do you how has as a mentor you have learned from your mentee? And it's talk. It's just to communicate, and sharing, and Doug Cantrell, who he and I have had a mentor-mentee relationship, and so I appreciate his comments there. But it's talking, it's sharing life experiences. I'm curious as to how the lemurs are doing at Duke, because Doug's wife was involved in that. So that's how we got involved. You get to know each other, and she worked in the lemur lab, if you will, at Duke University. So look at picking up on all kind of little things. What do they like to do? And sharing things. And one of these days, when we finish with this isolation from the pandemic, I intend to head to Durham because I'm expecting a tour. So we'll go from there.
Absolutely. No, that's great. I've enjoyed hearing some of Doug's wife's stories as well. We were listening to them earlier, right, Daniel?
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a great comment here. I'll just read it out. I was a mentee with Bob last year, who is great, by the way, and he did a really great job of using real-world examples from his experience to demonstrate topics we were talking about. Finding the right way to communicate with your mentor/mentee is key to having a successful relationship. Does anyone want to expand on that as far as communication styles or what you've used to communicate in the past?
I find that it really depends on the mentor or the mentee and their preferences. I have had mentees that we only spoken on the phone. I have had a relationship where there were a lot of check-ins via text message, and I've also had relationships where we meet face-to-face. Obviously pre-COVID. So I think it just depends on the relationship and the individuals within the relationship and the communication styles that they prefer. The thing that's difficult about this whole conversation is that we're trying to talk about individual relationships as if they're one group and they can all fit into like a little box, and they can't. And it's important, I think, that if you're a mentor or a mentee, that you realize that this is a relationship, and you've got to, just like any relationship, you've got to figure it out and figure out what works best for the two people in that relationship in order to make it work and make it be beneficial.
Absolutely. Salvador, did you have something to add? Were you trying to unmute yourself?
I was gonna say something similar to Jennifer. So yeah, making sure that you choose a method of communication that fits both of you, and also, like I said towards the beginning, be open and available outside of those regularly scheduled times. From my experience, I usually do a meeting once a month at the beginning of the month. Also, depending on the goal, if it's something like finding a job where you've already perhaps graduated, and maybe something more frequent will be helpful, like every 2 weeks. If you're still in your studies and just getting ready towards it, once a week, once a month, I think it's sufficient. And like I said before, you might get an email every once in a while with asking a question about a resume or a job posting. And so, yep, that will be it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. So here's another question in the chat box. Let me. So what are some productive questions to ask your mentor that can facilitate growth? So Daniel, I'll turn to you from the mentee perspective. What are some good questions that you've asked your mentors in the past?
So the biggest one was imposter syndrome. Right when I started out, I was so overwhelmed because the real world is not like school. Everything doesn't fit into a box. There are so many variables, and I was just very overwhelmed. So my first maybe 2, 3, even 4 phone calls were more of a psychology session of me asking, hey, is this normal? Or do you have any resources for me to read? And slowly he said, yeah, this is normal. read this magazine, here's a book, and whatever. And it really helped. And our conversations started off like an hour, and then they slowly dwindled to like half hour. And now it's just like, hey, I have like 5-6 questions, and then we just kind of, now it's like 15 minutes to a half hour. But yeah, definitely imposter syndrome was the biggest one.
Awesome, that's great to hear. Does anyone else have any recommended questions? It really depends, I think, on the goals and the expectations of the relationship, right? Like it probably depends. There's not, a list of out of the box questions that you can ask.
I think, Tirza, that it's you've got to be relaxed about what you're doing. So you're absolutely right. I don't think you can have a checklist. Question 1, question 2, question 3. You've got to as you get to know each other, and as a mentee, asking the mentor, what did you think? What was the most important thing to you when you were at my stage in my career, and those kind of things, so that you can get the mentor back into kind of your mindset of where you are, things that are concerning you, and so that you can, then see how they dealt with things, and it comes back to, from the mentor standpoint, encouraging again, like I said, and encouraging people to be open to opportunities, so that you never know. You open a door, you don't really know what's behind the door. And since Jennifer's got her cat, Schrodinger's cat, in the box, what's behind the door, and is that an opportunity, for you to grow, and those kind of things, and asking the mentor, what kind of challenges, what kind of things did you look for to improve yourself, I think is one that comes to mind. And I know it worked with me. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was kind of, as I was growing, trying to find those opportunities, and ties back into something that we talked about years ago on an ASCE presentation at a convention, of finding your niche. What are you good at? What are you going to be known for? Kind of thing. So trying to get to what that individual figures that they might be known for. And in my case, it was fixing things, taking broken projects and straightening them out, things like that. So, and I made a great career out of it. Had a lot of fun doing it. So, and that's the other part of it, is encouraging. What did you do? How did you take your job to be fun? Because it's got to be, for you to be successful. You've really got to enjoy what you're doing.
I just want to ask the other mentors, I guess, what do you guys think are like productive questions that a mentee like start ask, just to get either break the ice or, in your experience?
I would expect to be asked, or something I would like to be asked is just try to find common or a similar experience to what you're trying to achieve. So, for example, if you're looking for a job, which is what my past relationships have been for, try to describe what the mentor's experience was when they were looking for a job. And from there on, try to expand, gather more details. I think when you bring up like kind of from a personal experience, it's easier to relate to, and that can be a lot more productive than just talking in general terms, just because you're in that relationship. So if your mentor is telling you from their experience directly, then I think it's something that you can assimilate, recognize better.
Hello everyone. My name is Mohammad Azam Khan. I'm from Pakistan. I don't know why I cannot put my question into chat box, but my question is that, is it also necessary that there should be a gap difference between mentee and mentor?
I'm sorry, what was the difference?
Is it necessary that there must be education gap between mentor and mentee?
That's
No,
a
no.
great
It's
yeah,
an
that's a great
outstanding question. It's an outstanding question, and I don't think it is. I don't really think that it's necessary. Experience difference, maybe, but not necessarily an education gap. Because, like I said earlier, I have had mentors who were better educated than me formally, and mentors who were less educated than I am, and folks who were peers as mentor relationships, because you're sharing common ideas and common issues. So it just, the answer, I think, is it depends. It depends on what you're trying to get to. So no, that's a great question, because we normally think of it being someone older mentoring someone younger, but it doesn't have to be. It could be somebody at your same peer group, to share share common concerns.
So one of the hot one of the hot terms that I keep hearing, let me go ahead and make sure everyone's on mute so that we don't have any interferences. So one of the hot things that I keep hearing about is this term of reverse mentoring. So even someone that maybe even is younger, for instance, if Daniel is a great Microsoft Teams user, for example, he might be a great person to mentor Jennifer on how to organize, a meeting or share documents or anything else. So there's
Not that
definitely
old,
element.
Terza.
You're not.
Use me
I
as
should
an
use
example,
Mom. I'm
Terza.
I'm
sorry.
just really young.
I need all the help with Zoom and Teams and those kind of things. So Daniel can use me as an example. Okay, you won't hurt my feelings because I know I'm old.
That's really funny, Terza, because I had a mentoring relationship with a former society director, and he joked that we were both mentoring each other, and I was mentoring him on some of the younger things, and he was mentoring me on some other career and ASCE things. So, I think it just goes to show you that it really is a relationship, and the titles don't really matter.
Yeah, that's what I really like, using the term mentoring partnership. And I try to use that a lot within the ASC mentoring program. With all the resources that we've created, we've really tried to use that mentoring partnership term. So that is always great. So here's another question in the chat. I'm interested to see everyone's thoughts on this, and I'm not quite sure if I fully understand where it's going, but maybe we can get some clarification here. So with daily engagement, sometimes work and personal boundaries can get blurred. A mentor-mentee relationship has to abide by the human resources restrictions and guidelines. How to first recognize divergence and then steer a relationship back on track. I'm thinking this might be referring to maybe a company or an organization's mentoring program, and kind of that relationship. Does anyone have, or maybe Anwar is how I say your name. Would you like to clarify a little bit more?
Yes, you are correct. I was thinking about our company. We are starting a new program, and this is one of the concerns I have. When you work with somebody every day, normally your friendships grow beyond your work relationships, and sometimes that's not productive for the mentor and mentee relationship, because in my opinion, you are trying to guide a person to become a better engineer or have a better career, long-term career. Sometimes you don't want to be bogged down with the daily, what happened at home, what happened with my other friends, those kind of things. So before I sign up for the our company's program, I was just thinking, how can you recognize what's happening and when to put a stop to that? Because you are in a work relationship, it needs to be more work oriented. I know
So-
here we are talking about ASC mentorship, which doesn't have human resources impact and all that. So maybe my question was not in the right place. But all I'm trying to see is, I'm sure with Bob's experience, or somebody else can chime in, how best to make sure we are getting the best out of the relationship.
It goes back to being, what's the word? Treating everyone as people of worth and professionals, being professional. It's like in anything else in the work environment. Yes, you will find yourself spending long hours with people, and the lines can get crossed, but you've always got to maintain that professional relationship, the professional, because it's, when it comes down to it, all we've got when it's all said and done is our reputation, and so if you find yourself crossing the line, then you need to you need to look inward, look at yourself hard, and see where these are going, and be professional, and then be open and honest with the other person, to make sure the mentee, the mentor, whichever way it's going, I think is the biggest thing. Again, you got to be, as we've said several times, you got to be honest, and be aware. It's an awareness. It's a social awareness. It's a professional awareness, I think, is the term I would use to describe it. I don't know about what anybody else would say, any of the other panelists, but I think that's my thought on it. Is you got to keep things professional. You got to work hard at it, and you can still be friends, but you got to work hard at it.
Yeah, I would offer counterpoints. So it's not always the worst thing to know what's going on in someone else's life. If like something impacted them or something good happened to them, sometimes it helps build that relationship. So if someone gets married, has a kid, or whatever, then this kind of just helps. So you kind of know what the mind frame they're in. I think I'm using that word right. But anyways, my point is that sometimes it is healthy to know a little bit about someone, so it's not just all stale, but there should be some boundaries, obviously.
Well, I think Bob said it very well. We have to be professionally aware all the time. I think that's the crux of the discussion.
Yeah, no,
Thanks.
awareness is key, especially within a mentoring relationship. So that's a great question. I think that also kind of talks to something that is a question that sparks within my mind is the difference between maybe a mentoring relationship within your organization and a mentoring relationship outside of your organization, and kind of how are those different, and how are those relationships different? So just something interesting to think about. I think Daniel, you hit the nail on the head. It is kind of important to know what's going on in people's lives and just be aware of that. I know there's one coworker particularly that I can think of that since COVID-19 has happened and we shifted to remote work, I've really enjoyed getting that random Teams call from that individual, just checking in and saying, hey, how are you doing? Like, that's the kind of thing that I think we need in this environment. So, but here's another great question in the chat box. I think that is an old way of looking at things. If someone is having a big thing going on, they should feel able to share it with their mentor. If not, I don't think the relationship is authentic. The pandemic has taught us that everything in life is connected. That is connected. Sorry, my eyes must be going bad. I need to get my eyes checked. But yeah, I mean, I think that also is fair, and I think there is. Bob hit the nail on the head. Awareness is really key as far as, don't overstep that line, but still be aware about what's going on. Right? Does anyone have anything else to add? All right.
I think maybe the less professional relationships are probably going to be more with your peers, people that are more your age and are probably going to be seen more as friendships and less like mentor mentee relationships, in my opinion. I mean, I think that it's really important that your mentor or mentee understand things that are going on in your life, but that doesn't mean that that needs to be the topic of discussion if it's not impacting the goals of the relationship. That's my personal opinion. I have friends that I discuss more personal things with, and then I have mentors that I discuss more professional things with. And it's not like there's not a crossover, but, and I mean, we do know that personal impacts professional and vice versa. But that doesn't mean that if you're having a problem at home, that you need to discuss it with your mentor necessarily. I mean, I don't know. We woke up in the middle of the night in our hot water heater. We had a problem and there was a leak in our house. But that, I mean, and so it's messed up my entire day. But other than like, if I had a mentor appointment today, other than a quick, hey, today's super crazy because of this personal thing that's going on, can we reschedule? That's not really something that I'm going to lament with my mentor. But with my girlfriends, I'll be like, oh my gosh, you guys, we're going to have to repaint the bedroom and replace the trim. And oh, it's going to be such a disaster. Those are very different relationships, I feel.
Jennifer, you could have called your director, who I think is on this. You could have called your ASCE director and shared that with them this morning. I'm sure LP would have been very sympathetic.
I'm sure at 2:30 this morning, LP would have been real sympathetic.
Oh.
But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And it gets back to the professional thing and I mean, Jennifer and I have had conversations that will seem to last for hours over issues going on with ASCE and in different regions and how things are alike and what have you. So, and LP says he don't paint, so don't call LP to help you with your painting. But it's a again, it's a good thing to at least in your have those various levels, if you will, of relationships with people, and because that friend you're crying on their shoulder is a mentor in a certain sense. So and we all need those kind of folks. Everywhere you go, from standpoint of LP is a director for the society, and he and I talk as to each other. Not only are we friends, but we share common concerns about the society and how we can make ASCE better. So it's you got to play all the opportunities. You got to look at all the opportunities and see what's best for the situation you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's a good comment in the chat box. If your mentor can't tell you over the phone how to fix the water heater, what good are they?
Not good.
Good. You need to end that relationship and find a new mentor.
I think the best part about the whole thing, right, was that the baby woke us up because she was hungry, right? So 6 weeks old, they want to eat all the time. So like I was already tired, and then we woke up and there's like a puddle of water on the floor, and then my husband's like, baby ceiling, what do we do? We can't call a plumber at 2:30 in the morning. How do we exist without hot water with the newborn? Like, just, yeah. That's okay, though. A plumber fixed it for us, so we're good.
So I know with my mentor, the way, like, if, let's say, when finals were going on, I was like, hey, finals are going on, so this month's goals, I wasn't able to reach him. So that sometimes helps giving those little like tidbits, like, hey, something's going on, so I wasn't able to get to this or that. So that definitely is, I think, important to grow in a mentoring mentee relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all great points, and there's some great comments too going back and forth in the chat box. And I really think it is. It sounds like from the comments that we're seeing, it really is a balance, right, between being authentic and being personal, but then also not crossing certain professional boundaries and just being aware. So we are getting kind of close on time.
Brian's got a good couple of questions on the chat. How can you view mentoring through a social justice lens? And I think that again, like I said earlier, it's an opportunity to treat everybody as a person of worth, and to help others. It's the old helping people pull people up by the bootstraps. And those of us that have sort of made it, I tell people all the time, I tell my kids in no uncertain terms that if they don't put on my tombstone when I'm dead and gone, that he tried to make a difference, I'm going to haunt them, because that's sort of been my mantra my entire career. And it still is to try to make a difference. And as a mentor, I can try to make a difference for that mentee. So I think that's looking at it from that aspect of it. And then how do you as a mentor and mentees measure success? And I think if you help other people to grow, to become the old Army adage, to be all they can be. That's to get people to where they are a little more comfortable outside of their comfort zone.
For measuring success, I think it depends on the goals of the relationship. Some of those relationships, it's very, very easy to measure success. I want to pass the FE. I want to get a job. I'm trying to do X, Y, or Z. Those are very, very easy to measure, right? Did you meet the goals? Did you have a timeline? Did you meet them? What are they? Anyway, but I think that some relationships are a little bit more difficult to measure, and that's just kind of when you look at what Bob was saying. Are you seeing movement in the right direction? Are you making a difference? Are you improving? And those are not necessarily like end goals, but kind of things that you can see when you're looking back.
To go off that comment, I've discussed at the end of every year so far in 2 years with my mentor and said, how do you think this year went? And just any feedback. And we just talk about that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Daniel. Just sort of like saying performance meeting that you may have at your company in your formal job, doing a review session on your relationship. I think it's a good idea, and also building upon Jennifer's point. I think there's two type of goals. What we call like SMART goals that are measurable, easy. You have a timeline and you have a specific goal, and some others maybe like I want to find a job that's meaningful to me or that fulfills my passion. That's something a little bit harder to measure. You might be able to do it, but in a longer time frame, 5 or 10 years, after you realize that. And I think in those situations, what I would just do is making sure that the relationship is progressing, things are going well, and at least you're working toward that goal, even though you may not know that you have achieved it already.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all great points. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So I think we should move on to our closing thoughts. There's been some great thoughts so far shared. So I'll go ahead and start off. Daniel, do you want to start off with some closing thoughts for us?
Sure, yeah. So just thanks everyone for sticking around. I guess my biggest takeaway should be just be honest from a mentee perspective. Just be yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. Set goals, and more importantly, stick to them. And just remember that your mentor has done what you've done before. So they know it's awkward. They know everything that you've probably gone through. So it's okay to just, be honest and just, ask.
Absolutely. Honesty is something that's really come up quite a few times. So that's a great takeaway. Salvador, I'll turn to you. Can you want to share 30 seconds worth of closing thoughts?
Yes, sure. Thank you for that. So to me, I want to reiterate what I said in the beginning, that look at your relationships as a two-way street and try to teach and also learn no matter what your role is. As a mentor, I can also say that it feels really rewarding once you're accomplished your goal with your mentee. And also it's a great way to give back to the industry, to the community. I've been in the same situation where I needed a mentor. So to me, now being that mentor, it's just how I give back. And also, as a closing, feel free to reach out to me through the portal if you have any questions. I usually try to respond as timely as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you. And yeah, giving back is important. I really appreciate all the time that the four of you have given back within the ASC community and within the mentoring program. So you all have done a lot of giving. So I really appreciate it. Jennifer, do you want to go ahead and share some closing thoughts?
Sure. So I reiterate everything that Salvador and Daniel said. One particular thing that I want to make sure that mentors keep in mind, and I'm sure that they already do this, is a relationship, it can take a lot of time. So please make sure that you're not stretching yourself too thin so that you can really invest in your mentor. So kind of know your limits on that side of things. And to both sides, the mentors and the mentees, realize that it's a relationship. So keep an open mind, be authentic and be yourself, and don't be afraid to have those difficult conversations with each other. Those conversations I find are really the things that kind of help spurn growth. They're really difficult, but it really helps you grow. And it doesn't matter what side of the relationship you're on. I find that the mentor and the mentee both get something out of the relationship, and they both learn from the relationship. So keep that in mind too.
Absolutely. Those are great thoughts. So Bob, I'll let you go ahead and close us out.
Okay. A couple of things as we close out. Take advantage of opportunities. As a mentee and as a mentor, take advantage of opportunities to get to know each other, to get involved, to try different things in your career. It may lead to doors that are open, and be willing to make the changes you need to make. I think that's important. This is a good first step. ASCE helped me. A lot of mentors through ASCE. I learned how to talk to people. I learned how to lead organizations through the American Society of Civil Engineers. So, stay involved, get involved, and try to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about, is making a difference. And I know ASCE has so many different opportunities for you to get involved. So if you have any questions about that, feel free. I put my email in the chat box. I can try to connect you to a place where you might be really interested in getting involved and plugging in. So feel free to contact me. But that was a fabulous discussion on mentoring, and I greatly appreciate everyone's time. I can't thank this panel enough for everything that they've done for the ASC Mentor Match program and for all their time today. Just a reminder to everyone that you can always continue both this conversation and even check out the ASC mentoring program at collaborate.asc.org. That's available for all ASC members. And then if you are not an ASC member, please feel free to contact me to see how you might get involved or want to get involved in the future and take advantage of the ASC network. So thanks again for everyone's time today.